Alright guys, welcome to my fight night, Moicano versus Duncan full card breakdown. How are you guys doing? Since I did the recap in the previous stream, I could spend a bit more time on questions in the beginning now. So we'll do the 10 or so minutes of questions we used to do, and then we'll get into the breakdown for this week. I think the interest around this fight night is the lowest I've seen in quite a while. Paramount is crying seeing the 10 live viewers for this card. Yeah, exactly. It's like insane. Thoughts on Marco Tullio? I mean, he's not bad. He's just not quite technical enough to be ranked yet. I think he has some time to improve, though, and he definitely has potential. Not even gonna watch the prelim, such a horrid card. Yeah, it's not the best. Do you want to see Duncan versus Mason in the future? That'd be a funny fight. I mean, maybe. If Mason does keep winning, I mean, to be fair, like, if Duncan wins this, you have to give him a step up in the rankings. This wouldn't be fair to him at this point. But if he were to, like, lose the next one and Mason wins one more, then maybe it's a good time for it. Alessandro versus Grosso, who wins? I don't know. Grosso's performance definitely made me a lot kinder to her chances, let's just say that. Van versus Tyra, thoughts? Right now I'm on Tyra. I should Marab approach the trilogy. Calf kicks, a lot of pressure. Basically what he did in the first fight, just clean it up a bit. Feels like in years past, the week off, I'm not trying to watch Azamad versus Dishon under the table on my phone. Grosso's chances of becoming a champ. I mean, if Grosso can get through Furo, she has a decent chance. I mean, this fight didn't really answer how much her takedown defense has improved is the biggest issue. Do you think the bigger cage played a big role in the rematch between Jan and Rob? Not really, to be honest. Duncan is always an underdog. It feels wrong picking him as a favorite now. Yeah, I get what you mean. I love when Nicola's my favorite fighter. Fair. If Paulo Costa fought Alex instead of Bruno Silva, who would have won? I still think Alex would have won. Gaudier versus Abdul Malik, who wins? Probably Gaudier. Do you think Piotr improved since the first fight, or did Rob just stupid? I mean, a combination of both. I wouldn't say that Piotr didn't improve at all, obviously. He definitely did. Did Marab also fight stupid? Yes. What's up, Oracle? It's Wardell from the Discord. Hey. Manon is putting her to sleep. It's possible. I do think that, especially after what we saw in the Valentina fights between both of them, I do think Grosso has the cleaner boxing. But Furo, I still do think has a bit more power. Oracle, I'm at work watching your stream. Is that true fan behavior? Yes, of course it is. A lot of people said Seattle has been the best card so far. I mean, if you ignore all the controversy, perhaps. What is Renato's path to victor? We'll get to that. Why are the odds on this card so wide? I'm honestly considering picking Zecchini against McMillen. I mean, for that fight, probably because Zecchini hasn't fought in, 3 years now, and his last impression was terrible. And McMillen, like, yeah, I don't think he's spectacular, in all honesty, but is he going to beat someone who he's supposed to beat right now? Probably, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I'm not I'm not betting on McMillen at minus whatever 1700, whatever that is. Is everyone ducking Talbot, and that's why he isn't booked? Who will he end up fighting? I don't think everyone's ducking him. I don't know if he's trying to get a fight or what the deal is. I swear if Euro has 100 pounds of size on Grosso. It kind of looks like it, yeah. You use/like the Verdict MMA app. I used it a bit for like maybe a year ago or so. I haven't really used it more recently. Sometimes I'll check it in between rounds, but I've kind of realized that like people on Verdict don't know how to score for the most part. So it doesn't really help to know what the actual scoring is going to be. How do you see Tyra versus Van going? I think Tyra has underrated stand-up. Obviously, Van is better there, though. And if the fight goes to the ground, it's pretty much a wrap, though. Jersey, Belgorod chances, any top 15. I mean, middleweight, of course, is not the strongest division. Is there a chance? For sure. Do I think it will happen? I'm leaning towards no. O'Malley or Piotr? I'd still probably lean O'Malley. Size does not matter when you're fighting Alexa, maybe. How do you see McGregor versus Max at welterweight going? I mean, if we were talking about prime McGregor, it'd be very different than we're talking about 40-year-old McGregor after substances. At this point, do I think McGregor's going to win? No. But, like, if he makes a miracle return to form, will he win? Yes. But just chances of that happening, not high. Hello. Hero is honestly the biggest flyweight, I think. Is hella strong and big. Yeah, true. Were you picking in the Pereira and Yuri Olberg fights? I'm definitely picking Pereira. Between Yuri and Olberg, I think I will pick Yuri, but I'm not positive. That fight does make me a little nervous. I'm brainstorming ways to that. Is Carlos Olberg getting fraud? I assume you meant fraud checked? I mean, we'll find out. I wouldn't call it a fraud check when you're fighting for a title, though. Who's the best chance against Valentina? I didn't watch the Furo fight, but I heard it was close. Yeah, I mean, I would probably say Furo has the best chance in a rematch. Grosso could definitely win. She just seems to refuse to improve her takedown defense. That's the frustrating part. Do you use it for pick/XP? No, I don't. How many states have you been to? I don't know, man. I'd have to count. Tofik the cheat? Yeah, 100%. Tyra versus Prime Cejudo and DJ and how? I'd pick Tyra against Prime Cejudo. DJ could be a little bit of a tougher match. Nah, actually, DJ got taken down a fair amount, so I'd still pick Tyra. UFC trying to see a body putting match null against Imavov straight to the morgue. I'm pretty sure they're doing it because Imanol had a, I'm not going to say bad, but not good performance last time out. The Italian guy has been training at Jackson Wing for the past year and has improved a lot. Hasn't he been there? I'm pretty sure he's been there for over 3 years. I heard you said something about Zellhuber looking good in the past. Yeah, I don't know what happens to Zellhuber. When we saw the what's it called, Johnson and Bobby Green fights, for a while I was just assuming, okay, he always sucked and somehow got away with it. But then I was looking at his tape against Venata, and he actually looked decent. And not that he was some world beater or anything, but he wasn't what we saw against like Bobby Green and Johnson. As much to knock out Costa? Probably. Alright, I'll get into the analysis for this week so we don't get too late there. So, something I will say, I did not know this fight was on the card until this evening. I'm going to skip this because I don't want to give bad analysis. I don't really know either of the fighters. So I'll start with Barbosa versus Gatto instead. Let me grab my notes. All right. Starting with Melissa Gatto. So Gatto is relatively well-rounded, but ultimately she does want to get the fight to the ground if she can. On the feet, she's going to circle a lot and just force you to move into strikes. She keeps things relatively fundamental with a lot of 1-2s and singular kicks and such. She kind of muscles people to the ground and then tries to finish the fight there. Her takedowns aren't the most technical, but sometimes they can be effective because she is usually stronger than her opponent. She definitely has power, especially for WMMA, because all of her 3 UFC wins have come by TKO, so you can definitely see something there. Defensively, she's definitely questionable to say the least. She gets away with it though because most people can't really hurt her. Barbosa is also well-rounded with a bias towards grappling, so in many ways somewhat of a mirror matchup. On the feet, she'll throw out a lot of jabs and cleaner combinations. She's good at getting takedowns via throws or body locks, but she will shoot on a double leg to set it up at times. On the ground, she is typically looking to jump on submissions. She is not as much focused on the ground and pound as someone like Gatto is. So this fight is basically, they have the exact same game plan. Barbosa's a little cleaner, Gatto's a little stronger and younger. I'm just going to very, very mildly lean towards Gatto and pick Gatto by decision. I feel like the trajectory of her improvement is a little better, and I feel like with Barbosa being really reliant on like the judo throws and such, it may not work against someone like Gatto who's also going to be like shooting a takedown if Barbosa is getting in range to do that. So yeah, Gatto by decision, but it's pretty much a 50-50 fight. Moving on to Yakhyaev versus Gore. So Yakhyaev is a wrestler who has pretty heavy hands. He's willing to shoot in on singles or doubles, but generally his single leg entries are a little bit better than his double leg entries. On the feet, he just tends to wing a lot of looping shots, and it's mainly overhands realistically. His defense is effectively non-existent, he just eats punches. Yakhyaev is like one of those fighters who had a few wins that didn't mean much and everyone thought he was good. He's really not good. I said this before he fought last time as well. Like, can he win these fights because of matchups? 100%. But let's not pretend he's a good fighter. He's an overhand spammer who has mediocre wrestling and went to a split decision with Dylan Budka, I think, if I remember correctly. Moving on to Gore. Gore, I guess, would technically be counted as a wrestler. He has wrestling, but he decides that instead he's going to just brawl on the feet, so I don't know what to say there. He does have a pretty good guillotine. There is like a wicked image of him just cranking on like a power guillotine, which is kind of insane. On the feet, he's just gonna wade forwards, getting hit constantly, and just try to land some big shot, but sucks at striking, so it usually doesn't work. This is Can versus bigger Can. So I'm gonna say Yakhyaev by TKO. Is there a world in which Yakhyaev starts brawling and Gore, just being the very durable fighter he is, actually lands something and knocks out Yakhyaev? I would not be surprised. So, I don't know, like Yakhyaev at minus 550 seems a little bit extreme to say the absolute least. But yeah, I mean, Yakhyaev should win this by TKO. Alright, moving on to Alice Pereira versus Haley Cohen. So, Pereira is so far an enigma because on the regional scene, she was a pretty explosive finisher. And then she debuts in the UFC and immediately starts circling on the back foot and point striking without any intent to do damage whatsoever. So, I don't know if she had the like worst case of debut jitters we have ever seen or what happened, but it's very hard to judge who she is off of that and how she's going to fight. I don't really know. I will base this off of how she fought last time. If she changes it up, we'll see what happens. But based on how she fought last time, she is going to circle a lot on the outside, throw a lot of long uppercuts and straights to kind of maintain distance there. She really doesn't like pressure, but she is able to maintain a reasonable level of footwork and circle away constantly from takedowns and such. That's part of why she didn't get taken down at all last fight. Rondon just could not get the footing to set up a proper double leg because of the fact that Pereira was constantly circling. She will throw in her own takedowns to mix things up, but they are not particularly good takedowns, so they usually will not matter. Moving on to Cohen. Cohen is a wrestler. On the feet, she's going to stay pretty simple with 1-2s and then throw very predictable round kick into spinning back kick combinations. And I'm not joking, she will do this at least 10 times a fight. I don't know why she likes that combination, but she really loves it. Generally speaking, though, she wants to blitz in, push you back to the fence, and then you use her strength to grind for a takedown from there. On the ground, she's going to open up with some ground and pound, but she's not really going to chase submissions for the most part. On the feet, she just does not really have defense. On the ground, she arguably doesn't have the best defense either. So yeah, just all offense, no real defense. I think that the lateral movement from Pereira is probably going to mess with Cohen's blitzes, and she'll probably just be missing a lot of air and not be able to push Pereira back to the fence. So I am going to lean Pereira by decision here, but this is another one of these fights where it's like, I don't know. You guys get what I'm saying. Very, very low level WMMA fight here. Pereira has potential, but hasn't used it at all. And Cohen just has not shown much in the UFC so far. So yeah, one more time, Pereira by decision. We'll see what happens. Moving on to Lando Vannata versus Darius Flowers. So, starting with Vannata, Vannata has not fought in several years as well. So this is a very strange matchup for the UFC to make, because I don't know how there's any benefit regardless of who wins. But anyways, so Vannata is a very well-rounded fighter who likes to strike and burst. He will switch stances a lot on the outside and look for an angle to enter. When he is on the outside, he's just going to blast kicks to all different targets repetitively. When he finds an entry, he will enter with hooks and uppercuts mainly. He does have decent double leg shots, but he has definitely had mixed success because it's just not the most technical, even if they're alright. His takedown defense is okay, but he just seems a little bit slow in how he reacts, so it's not great. His biggest issue in terms of striking is he does not exit responsibly after he enters, so he definitely can be clipped after he does throw. Flowers is a Muay Thai striker who stands extremely straight up. He will typically pressure forward constantly, will blast lead leg kicks and jabs on the outside. He enters the pocket with looping strikes, and he does have actually solid blast double leg takedowns and pretty good head movement. The biggest problem for Flowers is that he's actually, on paper, a good fighter, but he has worse than Terrence McKinney cardio. Like, he will throw out like 3 to 5 good combinations and then start gassing and panic shooting. And the panic shots once he is gassing just are really bad. So I would not actually be shocked if Flowers got a round 1 TKO here, because Vannata has been coming off of like a very long layoff and was not doing great before that as well. But I'm going to lean towards Flowers gassing out again and then just giving up and letting Vannata get a finish. I'm going to say Vannata gets a submission here, even though he usually does not get submissions, mainly because Flowers will just give you the submission when he gets tired because he wants to get out. So I'm going to say Vannata wins by like round 2 submission here. Alright, moving on to Alessandro Costa versus Stewart Nicoll. So Costa is an explosive striker. He's a little bit small even for flyweight in all honesty, but kind of makes up for it by being so explosive. He keeps a high guard, blasts calf kicks on the outside. When he has an opportunity, he will explode into the pocket with a combination, then he'll back out again. He does have explosive double legs, but they typically just aren't the best timed and therefore aren't the most effective. He has a pretty good sprawl, and he could jump on someone's back if they mess up when trying to engage in the wrestling, so he is relatively dangerous there as well. Nicoll is a pure wrestler and grappler. On the feet, he is he's painful to watch. It seems like he's genuinely never trained stand-up in his life. Like, I can't even break it down because there is just no stand-up. He will use submissions or any other method to try to get the fight to the ground, but it's very predictable because he's not setting anything up with his striking, so it just does not work well. On the ground, he will alternate between submissions and strikes to try to open stuff up, but he definitely does make mistakes, which can get him finished. For example, against Aguilar, he had very dominant position on the ground, got a little overzealous, fell off the top, and then was guillotined out cold within like a minute afterwards. So yeah, Costa should win by TKO here. This is just like, I don't know how Nicoll got to the UFC with no striking. I guess his opponents on the regional scene literally just did not know how to grapple whatsoever. All right. Moving on to the last prelim. Jeremy Pat versus Thomas Petersen. Starting with Pat. Pat is a karate striker at heavyweight, which isn't very common to say the least. He is very jab and calf kick focused. If you make a mistake or overextend, he'll open up with a longer combination, but he has very little urgency for whatever reason. He will not push for a finish. He will just take it if it very clearly presents itself on a platter, and he will not pressure forwards and try to land stuff. The biggest concern for him in a matchup like this, and kind of in general in all honesty, is that he will back up straight to the fence, which is just not ideal against literally anything. So it definitely could be a problem. Petersen is pretty much a pure wrestler. On the feet, he'll throw lead leg calf kicks, jabs, and a few southpaw crosses, but is mainly just to get you to lift your hand so he can just immediately shoot after that. He does have a variety of takedown entries. He has actually legitimate wrestling. He's fine going to a single or double leg and will finish it however he needs to, even if it's like a throw. His biggest issue is that he has zero fight-ending ability whatsoever, and because he doesn't have great control on the ground, he kind of needs to be perfect for 15 minutes, which he typically fails to do. So I am going to lean Pat by TKO here. Heavyweight thing, so I'm not wildly confident a prospect getting held down for 15 minutes would not be shocking, but Pat is definitely the more technical, and with how just lacking of durability Petersen is, it feels like he'll just get clipped at some point and at the least lose the rounds off of it. Alright, before we go on to the main card, if you are for some reason betting on this card, like the degenerates we are, feel free to sign up for my betting service. We did 250 units in profit last year on the base algorithm, and the algorithm is getting an update soon, so hopefully we're going to do even better this year. It's $25 a month. Always feel free to DM me with questions. Link is in the description here. Not to mention Nicoll got choked out in his UFC debut. Yes, that as well. Remember when Virna almost KO'd Tony? Yeah, that was wild. I think that Virna is a fighter who could have been good if the UFC built him properly, but after the Tony fight, they were like, oh, you're good. Let me just give you a hard fight. And he kind of struggled because of that. Dakota Hope trains with Joshua Van. Fair, but not everyone who trains at a good gym or with good fighters is going to be good, though. But we'll see what happens there. Petersen's chin might be destroyed as well. That is very possible. He's gone out cold twice now. So, it's possible. Strat 3 will be goated. Fair. I'm very confident in Petersen. Being confident in anyone at heavyweight at the lower levels is a stretch, but best of luck if you're doing something with that. Dominic, he can't pull guillotine from there, Grace. That was hysterical. He was saying he's not out repetitively, and then Aguilar lets go and he's out cold. This Cruz's comment, I feel like Cruz isn't as bad as people make him out to be, especially compared to DC, but he's definitely gotten worse. I don't know what the deal is. Anyways, moving on to Jose Delano versus Robert Ruchala. So Delano is a heavy-handed striker who will use a lot of head movement. I didn't click on it. Okay, continuing. He'll switch stances constantly in order to create angles and open up opportunities there. When he throws, he definitely favors the southpaw cross, but he has a large variety of combinations that he will enter with. On the outside, he has good kicks and knees that prevent people from engaging too recklessly. His head movement is very good, but his footwork doesn't really keep up with his head movements, which can get him caught. Ruchala is a dynamic and unorthodox striker, I guess you would say. He blasts a variety of kicks and throws wild overhands on the outside. He'll occasionally just throw in random spinning back fists as well. He's decently strong in the clinch and on the ground, but his entries for takedowns aren't particularly good. He's just one of those fighters who's looking to land something big. He's not particularly technical anywhere. I'm not as high on Delano as the bookies are in the slightest, to be honest, even for his Contender Series fight. I was watching the tape and I was like, how is this guy minus 700 here? Not that he's bad, but he's not defensively, I don't feel like he's that good either, even if it looks pretty. But either way, Delano should get a TKO win here. Ruchala is very hittable and very finishable, so this feels like a showcase performance for Delano, but he's definitely going to have to make a few fixes if he's going to go too far in this division, because I didn't love what I saw. Are you able to say what Strat 3 will do, like the improvements, or should I just ask on Discord? I'll probably go into that more in the Discord than on stream here. Did Jonathan Martinez disappear? He literally has not fought in ages. I think he was very injured and he just wanted to heal up properly or something like that. How good would Flowers with cardio be? I mean, he'd be pretty good in all honesty. Delano looks like Ilya a bit. Are you sure he isn't Ilya? Fair enough. All right. Moving on to Tommy McMillen versus Manolo Zecchini. So to your point, Petersen, as you were saying before, I'll go over the possibilities of this fight in that sense. But starting with Tommy. So he's a submission specialist, but he definitely does have reasonable striking as well. On the feet, he has very high-paced, but like a rangy style where he'll keep his hands low and try to lunge in with strikes from there. He will look for submissions in pretty much any position. He is very submission over position focused, and even on the feet, he will try to just snap the head down and go for like a guillotine, a darce, anything along those lines. His wrestling has not really been tested, so it's hard to say too much there in all honesty. Zecchini is a dynamic and powerful striker. Generally, he's just going to load up on everything he throws. He uses a lot of big movements like overhands, flying knees, stuff like that. He isn't the most technical, but he definitely is dangerous. He also has not fought in 3 years, which is part of the fact why Tommy is such a massive favorite here. And he only has one UFC fight where he got absolutely obliterated by Morgan Charrier. So that's why pretty much no one has faith in him. Now, that being said, like, would it be shocking if a UFC debut ran into a flying knee or some big overhand here, especially with how edible it looked like McMillen was in Contender Series? I mean, yeah, no, it's possible. I am still going to say that Tommy wins by sub here, because I just don't think there's anything special about Zecchini, and McMillen at least has finishing ability from pretty much any position. So, yeah, I'm going to say Tommy by summation, but this is a fight to watch to see how far Tommy can actually go, because I didn't feel like, and I think a lot of people agree, that his Contender Series fight was not as impressive as it should have been to deserve this level of hype. So we'll see what happens. Do you trust McMillen's defense? No, I really don't. Part of why I would not bet at him on these odds. Does the UFC not allow you to have good tattoos? Apparently. Alright. Moving on to Ethyn Ewing versus Rafael Estevam. So, Rafael Estevam on the is okay. He's basically a pure wrestler. He has functional striking, but he doesn't want to use it for longer than he needs to. On the feet, he is primarily a kicker. He's going to use a lot of teeps and leg kicks to try to control distance. Generally, as I was saying, he's just going to strike to get your hands up. He's not going to try to win any exchanges. His main takedown is the single leg, but then once he has entered on the single leg, he will just chain wrestle constantly. He will go to throws, back takes, whatever he needs to do, and continue from there. Once the fight is on the ground, he is going to heavily go to ground and pound over submissions. Despite his BJJ background, he hasn't really shown much of a submission threat so far, and he does tend to lose position, even without going for much ground and pound in all honesty. So his wrestling is much better than his actual grappling, which is surprising given his background. But yeah, overall, he's just going to go kick to entry, takedown, and then control a little bit damage. One major theme with him is that he has slowed down in pretty much every round 3 he has been in. He will often do very well in rounds 1 and 2, and then just drop round 3 because he has pretty much zero gas left. Now, something important about this fight is that he's going up a weight class, and I think it kind of suits him, because he doesn't seem like a fighter who really needed to weight bully to wrestle. He was still kind of ragdolling fighters who were bigger than him, but at the same time, he was definitely one of those guys who struggled to make weight and missed weight sometimes, and because of that seemed a lot more drained in fights. So I do think 135 will likely be better for him, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. If he just all of a sudden can't get a single takedown because maybe he was more strength oriented than we could see like visually, well, that's probably why. Alright, moving on to Ewing. So he's very well rounded, but he definitely seems to prefer the box. He has solid footwork on the outside where he'll circle and try to create angles from there. He throws an assortment of kicks, but usually it's just a formality to be doing something. If he enters the pocket, it's usually he's going to start with the jab, double jab, or the lead hook. he likes to draw strikes out from his opponent and then try to slip and rip from there. He is more of a counterboxer. He does have very questionable takedown defense, though. Like, literally half a year ago, he was just getting ragdolled by a random regional fighter. So it's hard to say anything good about that. I actually am pretty surprised that Ewing is the favorite here, because we know that he has bad takedown defense, and we know Estevam is going to try to take him down. And yeah, while I would not be shocked if Ewing was able to catch him like later in the fight or something like that, or maybe just catch a flying knee early, it feels like a matchup where it's like, okay, you have to pick the guy who has the easier path to victory here. Based on how Ewing tries to stand back up, I feel like Estevam might actually catch the first sub of his UFC career here. I'm going to say that Estevam wins by sub here, and I think there's a solid chance it's a Darce, maybe an Anaconda. Amor said that by thinking McMillen kind of sucks, but I also don't remember Zecchini looking that bad before getting finished, but at the same time, it's been yourself to rewatch. Yeah, he was very just like overhand and big shot dependent, which is why I'm not very high on him, to say the least. Do you think Ewing is overrated? I don't think he's a bad fighter, but I do think that Willmaker wasn't ready to fight a decent boxer, and because of that, it's making people, yeah, a little bit too high on Ewing. But we'll see what happens. All right, moving on to Yakhyaev versus Ribeiro. So, starting with Yakhyaev. Yakhyaev is an extremely aggressive fighter who looks to push forwards early with a lot of kicks and pressure. He tends to start with front kicks and low kicks, and then he'll try to commit to grappling entries. Once he's comfortable, he's either going to blitz forwards with combinations or just straight up shoot from there. His takedowns are often transition to back takes and slams rather than just like a clean single leg or double leg finish. He is very offensive focused. He's just constantly going to try to create chaos. His defense is very questionable. He will just rush in with his hands low and his chin exposed, but he's so dangerous that usually it hasn't been punished. On the ground, he tends to use the ground and pound to open up submissions. He's usually not finishing the fight via the ground and pound itself. He really does want to look for the submission. He does have a variety of submissions between Brune, Kachowski, Etienne's, Darce's, etc., but it is typically like opportunistic in the sense that he is not he's not going to like seek for it constantly like Oliveira and then sink it in. It's more like, okay, once it opens up because of the ground and pound, then he'll latch it up. His cardio is definitely very untested because of the fact that he just has not gone past the round one except for once in his career. His style is definitely very finish early, so I don't think it's going to happen in this fight, but eventually if he does have to go into later rounds, we'll have to see how he performs there. Ribeiro is very heavy-handed, but he definitely relies on pure power to try to get his finishes rather than real setup. He throws mostly basic combinations on the feet, 1-2s and wide hooks. They are, of course, dangerous if they do land clean, though. He can take a shot decently well, of course, other than the Azamat fight, but Azamat has crazy power, and is definitely willing to brawl. His defensive striking is pretty bad. He keeps himself relatively open and just hates getting pressured whatsoever. His grappling is more closer to, say, like Charles Oliveira style, where it's just opportunistic in the sense of he's just going to jump on something when he sees it is possible rather than it is actually there. So he went for the guillotine against the Daggy kickboxer, I'm blanking on his name, and of course the Kimura against the guy who loves poking himself in the eye. I'm also blanking on his name, but you guys get the point. He did, of course, nearly finish the submission against the kickboxer, so there is stuff there, but he's just not technical with pretty much anything. So if he just doesn't catch you early, he's pretty much screwed in all honesty. Even though Yakhyaev is a submission artist, I'm going to lean towards Yakhyaev getting the TKO here. I think that there's no real points for him to grapple with Ribeiro, and Ribeiro's pretty good at defending submissions, but it's just so open to getting hit that even if the fight goes to the ground, I think he'll end by ground and pound TKO rather than the submission itself. Just got here and there's 2.5 fights left. This card is so clipped. Yeah, this is not the most high-level card, to say the least. Rooting Ewing, he's a cool guy. Fair enough. Do you think the Wellmaker is good? I mean, he has potential. I don't think he's that good yet, though, in all honesty. him coming out of nowhere and fraud checking Wellmaker with some main character stuff. Yeah, I agree with that. All right. Moving on to Virna Jandiroba versus Tabatha Ricci. I think this is the fastest we've ever gone through a card, but it's also because there's just not much to say about most of these fighters. That's kind of wild. All right. Anyways, starting with Virna Jandiroba. So she is an extremely grappling heavy fighter. Despite the thought that she's a submission artist, she only has like one submission in many years. So she's really just a control grappler for the most part. She's... I completely messed up my notes here. Whatever. Anyways. Okay. Her takedown entries typically aren't the cleanest, but she will chain her attempts and just use that to use that persistence to eventually get the fight down. Her striking is okay, but it's mainly just like hooks and basic jabs and such. She is not really dangerous. She has low volume and limited power. So if you are at all technical, you will outstrike her on the feet, and she has been outstruck on the feet pretty much every fight she's been in, all honesty. Her cardio is solid enough to maintain grappling pressure over 3 rounds, but towards the end of the fight, and it seems like in 5-round fights, she definitely is going to be slowing down. Overall, she's just extremely one-dimensional. If she can get to top position, she is able to win the minutes. If she can't, she is going to just struggle from there. Tabatha Ricci is a pressure and volume-oriented fighter. She tends to move forwards and blitz constantly to push her opponent against the fence. Whenever she's throwing punches, it's in tight combinations. From there, she'll either land strikes in the clinch or start to look for the takedown. While her striking is not the most technical, it's serviceable enough to provide pressure, really. Her ground time is mainly control. There's not really any ground and pound or in submission threat, in all honesty. She has pretty good anti-grappling, though. Fighters who need to take her down in order to win tend to lose against her because they just don't really get the space to do so with her pressure. And her ability to get back to the feet, if need be, is relatively solid. Even though I would probably say Virna is the slightly better fighter here, I think that Ricci's anti-grappling is probably going to be the difference maker here, and I'm going to pick Ricci to win by decision because of that. If Virna just gets stuck against the fence the entire fight, which is very possible, I just don't think she has a way to win. So it's kind of crazy Ricci has gotten this far with so many questionable decisions and a relatively limited skill set. But I mean, just sticking to a single game plan sometimes can work well. So her pressure is just doing wonders for her, I guess. So yeah, Ricci by decision. All right. Moving on to the main events, Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan. So starting with Moicano. Moicano is a damage-oriented grappler with a serviceable stand-up game. He has solid calf kicks on the outside. He will jump into range with a cross or a longer combo if the opportunity presents itself. He tends to be a bit vulnerable after he throws his cross. He drops his guard and doesn't really reset properly, which has been punished multiple times. I also talked about this in my reel for today, for those of you who haven't seen that. He will shoot on double legs, but he does his best work when he can get to a body lock. On the ground, he's going to maintain heavy hips and go for heavy ground and pounds. The submission sometimes ends up being how he finishes the fight, but it's generally the secondary fight ender. The ground and pound is actually what does the work, let's say. Duncan is one of those weird fighters to break down because, as I've said this many times, by all logic, Duncan should absolutely suck, but he finds ways to win. It somehow works. He's extremely slow twitch. He's slow and lumbering, but he does hit very hard. He is very strong, and he does have endless cardio. He tends to pair very different types of strikes together to throw you off because he's too slow to land otherwise without extreme misdirection. The best example of this is the kick into lunging punch against Vucenic that dropped him. He tends to throw overhands to get to his takedowns and really mixes up the strikes he throws when he is just on the feet. He loves the guillotine and he's willing to go to his back to really chase it from there. It's strange because it came out of nowhere. He used to have no real submissions, and then all of a sudden he had an amazing guillotine and just subbed multiple people in a row with it. So that works, I guess. I'm going to pick Duncan to win by submission here. And this is kind of just based on the fact that even though Moicano is the quote-unquote better fighter, I think he is going to gas out, as we saw in his last fight, because Duncan is kind of the same phenotype as Dariush, in terms of him being strong, slow, but just never fatiguing. So Moicano, if he's going to get this done, is going to have to do a lot of damage in round 1, and I just really don't see that happening. Watch the one time you pick Duncan, he loses. I would not be surprised at this point. Duncan's just impossible to pick fights for. But yeah, I think that as Moicano fatigues, he's going to start taking bad shots, taking more damage, and then eventually I think he'll take like a bad enough shot that he ends up in a guillotine as he's exhausted and taps out from there. I don't think Moicano or Duncan are necessarily technically better either way, but Duncan has physicality advantage by a lot and is younger. I would actually say Moicano's a little bit more technical, but yeah, Duncan has a much larger physicality advantage. Duncan is the best or worst lightweight ever, if that makes sense. Yeah, I get what you mean. So basically, we should expect something sloppy in the main event. Yes, 100%. Tabatha will never ever lose a close fight. She's a robbery merchant with physicality. True. Do you think you're underestimating Ewing on a full camp as well as training full time? I mean, the takedown defense issue was on a full camp. Training full time could change things. We'll find out. I got Duncan just breaking Moicano. Very possible. Thoughts on Duncan weighing 188 fight night? I mean, it makes sense. Would you change your pick if Moicano started talking about financial books? That might sway me. No, I would not this time. I would actually be more confident if he was doing more podcasts this time. I could see Moicano doing Duncan like he did BSD, though. It's possible. I'm not shocked. According to Duncan, he's getting around 4 or 5 TKO. I wouldn't be surprised. Duncan around from like rounds 2 to 4, I'm guessing. Very possible. Were you higher on Ewo or Yakhyaev? It's a good question. It's weird because we haven't seen either of them tested at all, so it's hard to say. I'm going to very, very mildly lean Ewo, but I think that's also probably just because we've seen a little bit more from him. I think Duncan will probably get a Darce on Moicano. Moicano can get caught in subs as he can be reckless. It's possible. I still think it will be the guillotine, but maybe. I think Moicano is going to use a body lock to take down Duncan. I mean, Moicano always wants to get to the body lock. So if he can, he will. I just don't know if he's going to be able to when Duncan is one of those slower, stronger, and in the grappling, more technical guys as well. Duncan said he's only seen Moicano at the gym 2 days of the week. To be fair, doesn't he have his own gym now also? Most skilled fighter on the card. Let's see. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Like, there's no answer. There's no good answer here. Duncan is supposed to lose every fight he fights, but just doesn't. Yeah, exactly. How highly do you rate Steve Garcia's technical skills? It's definitely improving significantly. Ewo is fighting Elikana. Yeah, I think he can probably sleep Elikana. The Sandman beat Talbot, and by what? I think he still does, probably by decision, though. I hate watching slow fighters. I get why. It's Estevam or Ewing by a lot. That's fair. It's probably is one of the two of them. Yakhyaev, maybe, but we haven't seen him tested enough to really know. Khabib or Arman? Khabib. What's your most confident pick? Is it Ewing? I'm not picking Ewing at all, so definitely not. My most confident pick is, I mean, probably Yakhyaev, but like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of useless because he's like minus 1800 or whatever. For anyone who just came here, I will go through the picks one more time. Skip the first one because I didn't even know this was a fight. Then I took Gatto by decision. I took Bakoyev by TKO, Pereira by decision, Renato by submission, Costa by TKO, Pat by TKO, Delano by TKO, McMillen by submission, Estevam by submission, Yakhyaev by TKO, Ricci by decision, and Duncan by submission. Predicted a lot of finishes, so there will probably be absolutely none on the card whatsoever. Let's just talk about UFC 327. I don't blame you. This is so bad. Anyway, you see Moicano path to victory. I mean, if he can use the speed advantage to get Duncan down early in round 1, then yeah, the fight really changes. Is there any fighter you have an irrational hatred for, even if they aren't a bad fighter? I mean, there's fighters I don't like because of who they are, not their skill set necessarily, but are you saying in terms of just there's no reason why I hate them, but I do? Off topic, but I'll always find it funny how Jackson Wink has had teammates fight several times now: Jones Evans, Cerrone Perry, Overeem, Arlovsky. Yeah, that's fair. I guess it just happens. I guess they have fighters of similar weight classes there, so it's bound to happen. Fights from UFC 327 you are most excited for? Let's check out UFC 327. Obviously, the main and co-main events should be great. Other than that, I mean, there's no bad fights on this card. It's crazy how much better this card is than the previous one. Because, like, I mean, Suarez versus Godinez might be a little lame, depending on, like, if Suarez is just holding her against the fence. Every other fight, though, should be pretty exciting. I still don't get why Luque is moving up to middleweight, but that is what it is. I guess Gamrot versus Ribovic should be particularly fun. Mirzakhanov versus Costa is going to tell us how good Mirzakhanov is or not. Do you think Hockett can win? Can he win? Yes. Will he win? I don't know. I'm probably leaning towards Blades. How was last week's card in terms of your bets? I did alright. I was a little bit up, especially because I got the Pyfer in rounds 1 to 3 bet at the end. Oh yeah, before I go fully off the rails in terms of talking about UFC 327, if you guys are betting, you might want to check out the betting service. Link is in the description here. It was up 250 units just off the base algorithm for last year. This year, we're also going to update the algorithm, so hopefully it is even more. Always feel free to DM me with questions, and unlike a lot of these other services, we're only $25. His April cards are always fire. Valid. Will Ewing win if he balances on his third leg to defend the takedowns? Might raise his chances. How is Suarez a favorite against Zhang? Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Costa gonna win too? Maybe. Thoughts on Pico being minus 340? I think he wins, but he's minus 340? I thought that Pitbull was gonna be like minus 130 here. I was probably gonna pick Pico, to be fair. I just thought that this would be a very like, oh, maybe we end at even money type of fight. Prime DJ or Merab at 135, who wins? Probably Merab. Easier cut for his paycheck because that's all Luque is in it for at this point? Maybe. Thoughts on Pitbull versus Pico fight? Yeah, I mean, I'm probably mildly leaning towards Pico, but he can also get knocked out by pretty much anything. Mirzakhanov by decision. Costa seems to be very durable. If Mirzakhanov can't get an early finish or knockdown, he may actually lose. Do you think Pitbull chins Pico? I don't think it will happen, but it's very possible. I think Garcia will KO Lopez. That is very possible. Osmata's bad cardio, 100%. Only reason Costa got KO'd against Izzy because he drank a ton of wine the night before, in my opinion. I mean, it's definitely not the only reason. It's also because his calf got absolutely obliterated. I think Gamrot is going to smudge Ribovic the whole fight and win a fairly dominant decision. Feel like UFC is pushing Ribovic too hard. Yeah, I kind of agree. Pico minus 350 as well. Yeah, for sure. Pretty sure Lucrative James lost another 5 units last card. I don't even know what he's doing. Like, I understand. Obviously, all bettors at some point are going to have a cold streak. Yeah, that's fine. That's how it works. But then when he releases his bets and like what he did afterwards, people send it to me and I'm like, what? there's no, this isn't like, oh, I bet rational things and it didn't work out. This is like, oh, I'm betting a bunch of long shots and stupid things where he knows he's biased, and of course it doesn't work out. It's just so, I don't know if the word would be like unprofessional or just stupid. I don't understand what he's trying to do. I'm Connor or Jean Silva. I mean, that's a tough one. I'd have to look back at how Connor fought. What does Pico have on the bookies? I don't know. Oracle, was there ever a fighter that by all terms and preferences seemed like very good, be it a sneaking suspicion they would suck? Guram. That was like the most right I've been about a fighter. Everyone was super high on Guram, and I thought he was pretty terrible. And then I got paid a ton when Cowie destroyed him. Costa been looking huge too. Yes. Douglas ceiling. He definitely has to fix some parts of this game, but he definitely could get into the rankings. Do you think you were overrating DDP's fight IQ and skills? Not really. Maybe it's a bit more dependent on his coaches than his own. I could see that because it was more game planning than like in-fight fight IQ. But I don't think so. What's your predictions on each of 327's fight? I mean, take this with a grain of salt because it's pre-tape and I may change things a lot from there. But I'd say Gastelum, Godinez, Holland, Gamrot, Landwehr, Pico, Murzakanov, Walker, Blades, Tyra, Yuri. I don't know why Izzy didn't stick with the calf kicks for the Piper fight. I talked about this in my recap stream, but it was mainly because Izzy was gassing out. Costa, in my opinion, should stay at light heavyweight if he wins against Murzakanov. Yeah, 100%. Costa had decent wrestling and mixed that with jiu-jitsu, he'd be champion. I mean, I don't know about decent. If he had very good wrestling, maybe. Thoughts on Bekzad fighting Wellmaker? I mean, they're throwing Wellmaker to the Wolves again, if that's the actual matchup I haven't seen. I mean, that's rough for Wellmaker. What was wrong with Guram? I'd have to do a deep analysis again on him to explain it in depth, but I just did not like his striking style. I thought it was very, like, just bad. I don't even know how to explain it. There was just stuff about it that felt wrong. Are people rating Guram that highly? I don't know. Where's Cowie? I hope he gets booked soon. Speaking of Cowie, do you think he's a pretty underrated 155er? Because I think he's a ton of run potential. Yeah, 100%. You finished the card in 40 minutes? Yeah, it was a fast one. Walker, yeah. I don't know if I can pick Reyes at this point is the big issue. I feel like Walker, I mean, at least he's going to be a little more comfortable on the front foot, but I don't know. It's a tough one to call. I think UFC should book Jean versus Murphy. I think Murphy's going to need too much time to recover after his injury, but maybe. Reyes versus Walker will go the distance. That would be funny. Asimov is putting Costa to sleep. What are y'all seeing in Costa? I mean, that's my prediction. This card sucks. Yeah, current one definitely does. What makes you think Hockey loses and think he's a huge athleticism, youth, and power advantage and should win? I mean, because he sucks. Like, his wrestling is fine. His striking is like, just wing wild stuff and be fast and hope it's enough. If Blades is still himself, he should just land a counter and put Hockey to sleep in like a minute. Is Charles being chinny an overrated narrative? I don't think he's chinny. I think he just absorbs some massive shots. Could you elaborate on why you're not that high on Delano? What did you not like when you watched him? His footwork. He has very good head movement, but his feet don't keep up with his head. So he gets to certain positions that I don't love. Who should Jean fight next? I mean, it depends what UFC's going to do. We'll have to see. Does Jean demolish Yair, or would it be somewhat competitive? I could see it being competitive for a while. Charles or Hamzat at 170, who wins? Probably Hamzat. Charles versus Pfeiffer, hypothetical matchup. I mean, Pfeiffer, again, I don't think is going to get taken down very easily. And on the feet, while Charles is probably a little bit more technically sound, I don't know if he's going to put out Pfeiffer, and I don't think he can absorb a shot from Pfeiffer, so tough matchup for him. JPL will be champ. Hopefully, that'd be cool. Almabayev versus Charles Johnson got booked. Early prediction. Almabayev. You think he subs Charles? No. It's decision, probably. Apparently, Chonko versus Frivolous sides. I mean, they're trying to give Chanko like the best shot of getting wins, I guess. But I mean, even Frivola might fraud check him. We'll see. Blades beat Kunyev with one knee, and Kunyev had an all-time great win against Shelton Almeida. True. What are your thoughts on Quinlan Salkfield? I thought he looked pretty bad against Nazareth before the KO, and his boxing defense was wearing Gonzalez moves. Still think he KOs Dariush, though. Yeah, I'm not very high on Salkfield. Does he still probably beat Dariush? Yeah, because Dariush is so slow and shinny at this point. But I don't think Salkfield's very good, to be honest. Could the Costa versus Azamat fight look something like the Kopylov fight, where later Costa walks Azamat down? I mean, round one's definitely going to be tougher for Costa, because Azamat's a lot better than Kopylov. But if Azamat can't get the early finish, can't do early damage, then yeah, it definitely could. I might as well ask who wins between Sandhagen and Ngannou with these questions. Yeah, valid. Franco versus McKinney. 100% McKinney wins. Really has no faith in Chanko. He's not very good. Chanko will knock Frivola out with his third leg. Maybe his fourth. Amazov versus Alvarez. Alvarez. Costa Whitaker, RDR fighting for the light heavyweight belts. Will make peak 2026. That'd be insane. What's your thoughts on Tom versus Alex Pereira for the belt? I think Pereira's going to knock him out. Will Frivola win if he balances on his own third leg to count out the Chanko's third leg? It's a question of who brings in the fourth leg first. Do you think nobody beats Air at featherweight and just kickboxing? You're kickboxing. I still think there are people who could win, right? Like, I think Jean still could win. I think that Allen might win also. I think it would be a really competitive fight. Keep forgetting that Benny used to be pretty good. I mean, he still is pretty good. It's just his speed even like more so left. Whereas Finney would just be the cherry on top for this card, 100%. Or are you not high on John Pork? Because his defense is garbage. Duncan versus Musayev. I mean, we could figure out who's worse, sure. I think Musayev would probably win, to be honest. Thoughts on Charles Johnson's right hand being a good luck charm? It's a weird one, yeah. Ven and Yuri plus Ulbrich to go the distance parlay. Interesting. That would be crazy. Franco's horrible. Someone with 2 days of wrestling experience can take him down if he stands too straight and was getting close by again. Yeah, that's also true. Does Azamat hit harder? Is it setups and timing? It's a combination of both. He has very nuanced boxing for the division, but he also just hits. Azamat is mad dense. Yeah, 100%. John Pork came to my store and left a mess in the fitting room while he was playing on his downfall. That's wild if true. But yeah, fair enough then. Was Pereira gonna fight at heavyweight with a 7-fight contract? Yeah, I have no idea. Salal or Aljo? I'm leaning Aljo. Yeah, I'm leaning Aljo also. Kinney versus Musayev, please. Yeah, that would be fun. Jean Silva versus Sean Strickland. I mean, Silva would have trouble landing in that matchup. If Salkfield loses to Dariush, which is not impossible, it'll be genuinely hilarious with all the hype Salkfield does. Yeah, for sure. BSD versus Charles. I would lean Charles right now, but I'm not confident. Would love for Musayev to go out cold. Yeah, me too. Ursig versus Elliott. Honestly, I have to lean Elliott. Betting on Yuri decision is like betting on Tuivasa submission. Yeah, for sure. What are your thoughts on Tassiro Tyra versus Tom Aspinall? Might be a little bit difficult for Tyra there. Gonna go early tonight. Have a good night. Have a good night, Elliot Pfeiffer. Does Mason Jones style remind you of Duncan? In a sense, yes. I think Jones is just the worst version of it. The worst version of it. Would you rather hail a Fight Lab or lucrative James parlay? At this point, probably Fight Lab. Bedtime MMA would be ruined if Salkfield loses to Dariush. Valid. I honestly think BSD dominates Holloway. Honestly, after what we saw, it's very possible. Yuri would have beaten John Jones if he was in Reyes' position. It's very possible. Arman versus Khabib, thoughts on why the winner would win? I mean, I think Khabib is just a little better than him. I mean, yeah, Arman's stand-up is probably a little bit better, but I think Khabib would be able to out-wrestle him. What's your thoughts on Tuivasa getting a jiu-jitsu back tattoo? I mean, it just seems like he lost a bet. Do a top 3 worst lucrative James bets. I mean, if someone wants to compile a list of them for me, sure. What's Damien's last name? We shall never know. Did I miss the whole breakdown? I always think we start an hour later than I do. Yeah, this was a quick one because it's an anticlimactic card. You know what? Since Musayev versus Ignacio is such a BMF worthy fight, they should give Musayev Charles valid. How many units are you up this year? Just curious. I would have to check, to be honest. Thoughts on Khabib versus Charles? I've always thought Khabib would win a boring decision. Tuivasa's BJJ tattoo is like John Jones getting an I love my wife tattoo. True. Who has the most powerful punch in a horsepower sense? Just pure force, no accuracy, pound for pound. I mean, it might be Pyfer. It genuinely might be Pyfer. 100,000 on Del Valle. Yeah, that was wild to see. That might be his worst bet, yeah. Like, meanwhile, we had the bet on Levitt hit. Can you make a video exposing Musayev's weaknesses for cheating, which you said you would do for fighters cheating? Yes, I am planning on doing that. I have to figure out how to format it so it will still do decent in the algorithm, but I do want to do that. Moicano get a TKO. I mean, there's a possibility of a ground and pound TKO. If he was struggling to take down Iaquinta in the later rounds, I think Volk and Arman could survive and win. It's possible, but Al was also a good wrestler. Like, even though, yeah, sure, as a all-rounded MMA fighter, I get maybe not the best, but he was a very good wrestler. I think Prontos could knock out it. It's possible, but I don't think so, to be honest. What's the worst main event you have ever sat through? Probably Rose versus Esparza 2. The Canada fight card genuinely might be the worst card I've seen, at least in recent memory. Fair. I don't know what you have against Fight Lab if it weren't for him. I wouldn't know you have to use your hands to punch someone. Yeah, it's revolutionary stuff. I'm Kamaru Usman versus Khabib and Islam. Who wins? I'd probably take him against Khabib, but probably not Islam. 100,000. Yeah, I don't know how he puts that much on a unproven fighter. It's crazy. Who would you want Fight Lab to fight? I would take it. I'd take the fight. Ground and pound from Pyfer might genuinely have taken years off Izzy's life. It's possible. Yeah, that was harsh. Hack the entire lightweight division if you're making that vid. Valid. Who's your biggest what if in MMA history? Honestly, I'd have to think more about that. What event was your first? Honestly, I don't know what my first event was. The first that I like very, very clearly remember, I think, was Whitaker versus Romero. But I definitely watched for years before that. I just wasn't paying as much diligent attention, to say the least. Argued with some people that JDM would batter Prime Usman. What do you think? It's very possible because Usman isn't obviously as good at holding people down as Islam is. So it's not a crazy take. When you made breakdowns for specific fights in your Instagram, has any fighter actually reached out to you and let you know that it helped them in their fight? Coaches have, more so than the fighters, to be honest. Trying to think if any fighter has. Yeah, I don't think fighters have yet. Which welterweight has the best chance against Islam, and why is it Uros Medic? If Uros Medic slept Islam, I would die laughing. We've also slowed down against Drunk Connor in round 3. Folk might be his nightmare matchup along with Ilya. Yeah, Ilya would be very tough. Zabit wasn't that good. The Korean Zombie, yeah, that's up there. When did you start analyzing MMA? At this level? A few years ago. but like passively, just for fun, I mean, I don't even remember. Were you most confident in UFC 327? Uh, None of these fights scream confident, in all honesty. But like maybe Tyra, Morales, or Ian. I'd probably lean Gary, but it's a tough call. Favorite fighter in each division. Let me look at the rankings. Flyweight, it's like it's split between Tyra and Moreno, even though Moreno is unfortunately washed now. Bantamweight, probably David Martinez. Featherweight, John Silva. Lightweights, Charles, and then BSD after that. Welterweight. Honestly, I've never been like crazy attached to any fighters at welterweights. It's hard to say. Middleweights, also tough to say. Maybe like DDP. I don't know. Light heavyweight, Yuri, and Jan and Yuri, both of them. Heavyweight, it all sucks. Did you recap the main card predictions? Yeah, sure, I got you. Delano, TKO, McMillen submission, Estevam submission, Yakhyaev TKO, Ricci decision, Duncan submission. Renato versus Tyra must have been both beautiful and painful for you to watch. And yeah, 100%. Who was your favorite fighter when you first started watching the sport? For me, it was Izzy. I don't know if I really had a favorite fighter at that time, to be honest. How would you do against Bilal with the 6-month training camp? In kickboxing, I'd do fine. In MMA, not great. Dominic praising Keith Petersen for letting that dude get Mortal Kombat finished out of me in stitches. Yeah, that was terrible. Off your head, White House card winners. Ilya, Alex, of course. Then Garcia, probably. I'd probably have to do more tape on the rest. Usman versus Pratas, who you got? Pratas at this point. What about Jean Paul? He's welterweight. Yeah, he's solid. I guess you could say he's my favorite fighter there. Thoughts on having a data-driven MMA approach and everyone training everything individually with one-to-one or small group, as well as doing open mat and sparring. There's no good MMA gyms around me. Having no good MMA gyms around you is tough, but in that case, yeah, you're going to have to do something along those lines. You just don't have a choice at that point. Obviously, you want to be, when you add data-driven strategies for that, you want to be building it on top of a good base if possible. If you have a good MMA gym and then you optimize on top of that, that's great. But yeah, I mean, do what you can then, of course. If you don't have a clear welterweight favorite, then join JDM Mafia. I mean, he's up there, to be fair. John Paul Lobosian is the one who knocks fair. Think you're the highest on Tyra in the world? Probably. You think Islam beats a prime Usman? I'd lean towards yes, but I'm not positive. Tyra versus DJ Tyra. Parkle versus Shevchenko prediction, guys. You think Duncan's BJJ is better than Moicano's? Not disagreeing, just curious for your reasoning. No, I don't think it's better. I only think that Moicano's going to gas, and at that point, he can get subbed. I like Tyra too, W Oracle. Thanks. Who has top 5 BJJ in the UFC? I mean, Oliveira, probably Tyra to an extent. Who else? Look at the rankings. I don't know why. BJJ is hard to rank because it's like who incorporates it well into MMA is a different question than who technically has good BJJ. Yeah, I honestly don't know who I'd put for the rest of them. Do you think you could beat any UFC fighter on the roster, whichever weight class in women? I mean, if we're including WMMA, yes, for sure. If we're just saying men's MMA, then I think I could beat a few, but it's a stretch. Would you at all be surprised if Tyro snipes Van with a right counter? No, I wouldn't be surprised. Who's the highest ranked fighter JPL can beat? Right now, I think he'd beat D-Rod. I think he'd beat Colby. MVP could be tough, just stylistically for him. Medic is he could beat Medic, especially if he just goes all in the wrestling, but I would be a little bit worried. I do think he would beat Burns, though, actually. Who's your favorite low-level fighter? Low-level fighter. Honestly, I'd have to think about that more, also, I'm not sure. We all know Protus is knocking out JDM. We'll see. Shevchenko versus Harrison. I'd probably lean Harrison right now. What would you say is the latest someone can start training combat sports and have a successful MMA career? It depends what they were doing before that. If you were in a sport that transfers well, then it really doesn't matter what age you are. If you aren't, well then that's tough. JDM would only need to fight a perfect fight to win versus Protus. He only needs one good timing. Somewhat true, but you're assuming that Protus can't be hurt, which he definitely can be. Who's more skilled, Volker, John Silva? It's going to depend how you define skill, to be honest. Would you rate Ilya's grappling out of 10? It's hard to say because it hasn't really been tested. Pantoja? Oh yeah, Pantoja's definitely up there. Would you say Sean Brady top 5? In terms of pure BJJ, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. Marcus Buchecha, God. What about the Mosquito girl? Yeah, to be fair, she's probably up there. I don't know why people are saying Max loses to BSD. BSD wrestling sucks. I mean, I wouldn't say it sucks. It's worked pretty well. If Pantoja and Charles were the same size, who's winning? I don't know. That's a tough one. Turner might fight. I mean, Turner fights are always fun, so. John Silva KO's Volk. KO's Volk. Volk's team knows it. That's why they want Mobzar. Very possible. Maybe too personal, but what weight class would you fight in? I have made 125 before. Would I want to do it now? I don't know. But somewhere in that range. Leon or Bonfim? Bonfim. Forgetting out the pleasure man is the goat of all football fighters is crazy. The least surprising take from you, Val, but fair. He was fun. Protoss got rocked by Ian. Yes, that is true. Buckley or Brady? I'm not sure. It's 50-50 in my head right now. For me, top 5 BJJ is probably D-Rod, Tuivasa, O'Malley, Chanel, and Roundtree. 100%. Perfect list. Marcus Buchecha made me realize that physicality doesn't even matter at heavyweights these days. Yeah, crazy. Heavyweights is doomed. Tyra versus Charles at same size. I'd lean Tyra there. Did you know BSD started training MMA at 22 but had a judo background? Yes. Don't forget, man, Alex beat the best wrestler at heavyweight, which is Roundtree. Yeah. Or Gold versus Tyra for the belt. I would struggle there. My wrestling is like my weakest part of my skill set. Is there anything you could think Tyra is defective in, or is he all around great? Any glaring weaknesses? There's some things in the striking that could definitely be tidied up, to say the least. BSD is also very athletic, which helps. True, he's very slow twitch, but he is very strong. Pantoja blitzes and Charles has a lot of power, yes. Is this a bettable card? I think it's bettable, it's just kind of terrible. I mean, for bets, it's fine. I just think in terms of like quality, it's kind of terrible. Strongest man on the planet at any given time is the light heavyweight champion. Definitely over the heavyweight champion, yes. He has to be on roids yet, right? I don't think so. I mean, there's nothing about his physicality or like abilities that seem like he's on PEDs. Seeing as how awful the heavyweight division is, I feel like anyone with mild talent and a little athleticism can make it 100%. Why didn't you wrestle in high school if you did other martial arts growing up? Because I didn't like train as if I was going to do MMA or anything like that. I just didn't have any specific interest in wrestling, so I never did it. How did the Ruchala brothers do in the UFC? I'd have to look at tape. Usyk versus Tim Elliott early predictions. Elliott by decision. Armin versus Volk at 155. Volk. John Jones' physique also doesn't scream right. Has Musayev leaped Umar as your most hated fighter? I mean, Umar was never my most hated fighter by any means. I don't like Umar, but like he's definitely not my most hated. Who's the biggest man Charles could beat in the UFC? I mean, choose some random blob heavyweight and it's them. Which UFC fighter would probably bench press the most? I don't know, what's like the most roided heavyweight right now? Maybe like Sergey Pavlovich? Do you think they give Pantoja or the winner of Koji Cop the next title shot? Probably Pantoja if he wins. Oracle do train? Yes. Not as often as I used to, but yes. I still don't understand why DC is a heavyweight. I'm not buying that anyone is more effective with that much body fat. I think it's just laziness, to be honest. Alright, I'm going to call it quits. Good luck on your picks and pray on the destruction of Tawfiq. Have a good night. Oracle's most hated by far MVP. Tawfiq is definitely catching up. Doesn't Umar saying Merab can never beat Jan in the trilogy is it justified or just saltiness? It's just saltiness. Favorite combo? Not sure if I have a specific favorite combo, to be honest. I'll throw a lot of different combos. Take him Sergey if he doesn't somehow knock out Taliesin Teixeira, he's done for 100%. Stipe versus Alex prediction. Prime Stipe? I might actually take Stipe there. What one or two fighters have the best chance of beating Ilya all time and right now? I mean, stylistically, Prime Connor would have been a terrible matchup for him. Right now, it's probably like a... I don't know. Maybe like a JDM type, if Ilya doesn't wrestle enough. Or... who else? I honestly, I mean, I'd probably pick him against anyone who's going to feasibly fight, though, realistically. Like the UFC made the fight as a test circuit, knocks Teixeira out. If he doesn't, he gets the boot. Very possible. Do you think Prime Connor was the best fighter of all time? Not of all time, but I do think he was very solid. Alright, I know this was a quick stream, but with how terrible this card is, we got through it quickly. I am probably going to wrap it up from here. Appreciate you guys being here, even with such a terrible card, though. If you guys have not checked out the betting service already, feel free to do so or DM me with questions there. I hope you guys enjoy the events. Have a good night, everyone. I'll see you guys next time.